let me tell you about my guest, Kimberly Dvorak. She is the award-winning National Security and Border Security Investigative Reporter. She is also Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. She is a TV correspondent for CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network. And she streams live at Periscope.com, Facebook, a little bit later on YouTube. Her website is The KD Report. Kimberly, how are you?
Well, happy. I guess it's a bit lucky here. We survived the weekend, beginning to mark the little things on the calendar since the COVID-19 has kind of thrown our lives into oblivion.
I was looking at your latest report. Press to reopen. Governors say their states need more time and more testing.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came to my mind was, I wonder how many of them, just about every other day or every day, they put on their little suit and they walk about their peers and wait for them to say, "Hello, Governor Cuomo, you're looking very presidential today," or "Hello, Governor Newsom, you look very presidential today." You know what I'm saying? A little bit of power. Do you think that had something to do with their reluctance, or are they really just that involved in it, protecting the people?
Well, I have a few stats that were released yesterday, and I've actually been watching some of Cuomo's, statements and press releases and things that he's sending out on a daily basis to presumably all New Yorkers, but all of us out here around the country are able to watch this because it's aired every single time he's there. Now, New York has gone through a lot, and there's no way around it. We understand they've gone through a lot. But what I'm about to make, the statement I'm going to make here is going to be very interesting because in California, the Democrat governor, Gavin Newsom, when California reached 675 confirmed cases, he ordered everybody to stay in place. No going out and all that, and then moved on. Now, Cuomo's been asked several times about if he was slow to the draw here, since that is the hotbed. He's like, no, we just had to play catch up because we didn't know. Well, he didn't put a stay in order place until 7,000 cases were released in New York City. Yeah, so 7,000. So California, which will give Gavin Newsom huge props on this, less than 1,000 people. He shut the system down, and the deaths and the pandemic and all of that is actually a lot lower than what's going on in New York City, who waited. And the only parallel I can put on a lot of this stuff, though, is that the states that are hit the hardest are the states that are navy blue, because these sanctuary policies where they're not, they're letting anybody and anyone who wants to come to the state of California or New York and get sanctuary. Well, this comes at an economic price, and right now we're seeing it comes as a pandemic price.
Well, and you've also got to support all those people.
Yeah.
Those extra people.
Yeah, the billions. So yesterday, Cuomo's on doing his noon direct address to the people of the United States and saying this is a great time to reflect on family. And he has his daughters living at home with him, and he goes and visits his mother every now and then, and he's really looking at it, that everybody just needs to, settle down and just enjoy their family. Well, you know what? People have their kids in California that live on the East Coast. They weren't able to get their kids home, and certainly, he's a very wealthy man. He can, things of this nature come a lot easier than single moms or families that, need two jobs to make sure that they can make rent every month. So that to me just is like, he's out there saying we're going to do these things, and it's great. And I wish I could be with both my kids right now. I don't. We talk every day and do it that way. But, it's ridiculous for these people from navy blue states, again, trying to tell us that this is what we can do when Americans can't afford to, go to the grocery store next week if they don't get paid.
One of the probably most glaring things, other than the governor, for so many times the governor of New York, people were saying, I think he's already president, or he's going to replace Biden. He did a little thing spinning in his head. But then when you get Nancy Pelosi with her expensive ice cream and her $30,000 refrigerators or freezers, or whatever. How stupid is that? I mean, to do 20 or 30 minutes about how she has so much ice cream that most people can't get.
Exactly. I mean, and for her, I mean, she was on Fox News Sunday, which we give her props for showing up for Fox News, even if it is for the Chris Wallace. She was asked time and time again in that interview, don't you think that you bear some sort of responsibility for, your February 24th statement saying, go out and shop, go have a good time, come to Chinatown? And, over and over she said, no, the president's the one making all the mistakes. Well, on the 24th of February, there were already several states that were locked down, and she's out telling everybody to go to Chinatown. And, to me, just, it's, again, just not connected to reality here. Americans wouldn't do that. And, in fact, the people that live in Chinatown, from what I've read, have actually really, stomped out the virus in their little community because they put in a whole bunch of different provisions to stay in place and where you can get your food. And that's worked. But if we suggest that on a national level, then you know what? We're racist, we're xenophobes, you name and Hitler-loving, all of these titles come out there for that. But, when you see governor after governor in blue state come out and cry, I don't really feel, sorry for the governor, and maybe the people of that state, can take a look at what's on the board there for election in November, because Cuomo thinks that the U.S. taxpayer and all of us should be giving New York City $500 billion. That's what he's demanding. $500 billion. I mean, it's ludicrous to think that we're all going to do this when they had money issued to them to make sure that they had their health care system in place and everything was going, and they took that money and spent it elsewhere. There's got to be consequences. They always say election, here's the consequences when the election time goes around. And, with all Americans mostly home for the most part, they're watching a lot more TV and they're watching the news, and they're actually figuring out what's going on and why these politicians are doing what they're doing. So, I mean, it's just, we'll see how it pans out here.
Yeah, and Pelosi with Wallace, she got into this whole thing about Trump has been ignoring scientific evidence, and then she's talking about how we've got to vote by mail. Boy, they're going to push that so hard. I don't have it in front of me, but I know Chicago, Illinois was asking for like $40 million to help their pension fund.
Yeah.
They want that in the new bill.
Yeah.
And then, of course...
Go ahead.
Yeah, Chris Wallace, I mean, man, that guy is so left. And the story I had on him, that he would never, counter anything that she was saying, no, I'm not going to, I'm not there going to stand up in any sense. Yeah. Wasn't that a really strong debate I did with her?
Yeah.
Debate?
Yeah. No, I mean, they just, they tend to let them go on the facts, and, it's fine. You can have Democrats, going out and talking about these things, but the reality is that in this country, there are, people that are dying from this disease, and we're not necessarily on par as to where we should be doing, the testing. And they were saying that what they need to start doing in a lot of governors, this is where the governors who want this to drag on forever, so they think that they'll be rewarded at the ballot box. I think that if they continue it this long, they'll be out of office in November, and I'm talking the Senate as well as the Congress could lose everything by putting this off, and people completely not, able to get their jobs back. But in the doctor there that's at the White House and doing her press briefing said that they're actually testing about 150,000 Americans every single day, and what they're trying to get out there to different governors, different states, is to do these sample testing where you take, say, let's just use New York City. They've got like 4 million people that live in the little area. And then you take a random sample of people, whatever it may be, 1,500, 2,000, and you put all the numbers together, and you'll figure out where you're going, where you need to do your testing, and where, the hot spots are, so they can kind of, break it down. And that's what South Korea did also. South Korea did an unbelievable job at locking this down, and people are calling them, racist as well. But, they just lock down. You test. If you're positive, then you got to go over this direction. And if you're negative, you can go this way. There's nothing racist about that. This is like, yeah, it's frustrating that they want to throw that tag on this, but this is like, are looking to save as many Americans and people around the globe as we can. So why wouldn't you look at how somebody did it successfully? And now finally the administration's starting to come out to it, but there be all kinds of roadblocks, and nobody, again, it came from Trump, so it's racist, it's xenophobic, and that's the issue we have.
That's the main thing, Trump, he's racist. And as I have said over and over and over, Kimberly, I bet you he's the least racist president we've ever had in the history of the United States.
Yeah.
And you know how they're doing now is you can't open it up, you can't, well, there's two things here, okay? Number one is they don't want him to open it up because they love that power they have.
Yeah.
We want to be in control.
Yeah.
The other thing is about you just can't open it up, we need more testing. And in your report, 150,000 diagnostic tests conducted each day, according to the COVID tracking project.
Yeah.
Project. 150,000. Yeah. What do you want, Hillary? I'm sorry. What do you want, Nancy? Huh?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah. Well,
151.
Yeah. Well, but again, it's a staggering number when you look at it, in an everyday basis. But I'm really kind of liking how the White House is trying to make that shift to put more pressure on China, who's actually cornered the market with these PPEs kits. The masks that used to cost 50 cents, they're charging $8. So we're seeing China actually kind of profiteering, if you will, over this. And, Pete Navarro, who's the trade ambassador, has really come down hard on China and said that there's going to be some consequences, with their actions during this, and demanding that they open up that, lab in Wuhan, where everybody was saying, no, this came from a bat. It didn't come from a bat. It came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And whether it was meant to come out on purpose or not, that's still to be debated. But if you ask anybody on any of the mainstream networks, if they are comfortable saying Wuhan, China was where this originated, and ground zero, so to speak, and they'll all say, you're racist, you're a xenophobe, but how dare you think that? But that's exactly what happened. And again, when you look at this, and you look at the numbers, and you see people that are dying and whatnot, why aren't we all working together on this to make sure that we are able to move forward? And we can't continue to be in this stagnation and not be able to go out and conduct business that we normally do to get our economy back on track. We need to open the government for business, and that's what you're seeing all those protesters.
Well, and I'll tell you, and you brought it up on a posting you had on your Facebook about the fact, that these fact checkers.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious, the Democrats and the mainstream media, you're not going to get the true story. Yeah. Now, this guy, Peter Navarro, I could almost, I may have told you last week, I could almost see him in the future being at least a congressman, if not the president. Yeah. Man, he really knows how to deliver a message. Yeah, and he's correct. He's very pretty low key in front of the cameras, but when you see him, I've met him once, so obviously not a great friend or anything, but he emanates that optimism, and I think that's what a lot of people on the left are completely forgetting about. We need to be optimistic. We need to figure out and make goals, set goals for ourselves on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and a monthly basis. Otherwise, the global economy is going to come crashing down. And I don't know if you saw what happened to oil today, but oil came down at one point to $6 a barrel. And, this is where this is going to destroy all the Middle East, and this is going to destroy, economies that can't afford to, because now what they're going to have to do is stop producing. And the U.S. will have to, drive back production, because we can't put all the oil that we pull out of the ground to refiners and slow it down in time. There's just such a glut on the market right now. It's just, not a very good time for oil. But, I hope, this on the flip side, I'll be optimistic. I love paying, gas, less than $2 for, a gallon of gas. I really like that. So it's there is a positive and a negative. I was going to bring to your attention because, and I think you might want to look into this story that I got. drones. The drones being used in so many police departments.
Yeah.
They are actually being donated by a company with ties to the Chinese government. They're coming from the Young Innovation, DJI.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I haven't.
Law enforcement.
Yeah, I haven't.
And I,
Go ahead. If you can send that to me, I'd appreciate it. That sounds very scary.
yeah, I'm pretty sure I got it on what finger, but I'll have to check it out. And I'm thinking automatically, okay, so you've got the drones going, and you get to spy on people.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there's no way in the world that the Chinese could hook up something that whatever you record the American citizens doing, we're going to be able to see it. No, that wouldn't happen. No.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Yeah, it's a really sad thing to think about that. But, I mean, we know that. We expect that from China. The whole drone thing I will look into. But, I mean, we expect that from China. But with Facebook and what they're doing is they're essentially taking down pages.
In fact, hold that thought
Okay.
on Facebook, will you? Because we'll take a quick break, come right
Okay.
back with Kimberly Dvorak, TV correspondent, CW6 News, San Diego, One American News Network, and she is the Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy, and her website, the AD Report, adreport.com. Tell you what not to say, too, don't they?
Yeah, so we're doing live, so I'll try to be as kind as I can so they don't knock me off. Facebook has gone through it, ever since, we had the Russia thing. They've installed a whole group of fact checkers that look at content that is placed on Facebook, and they are taking that and they're taking those pages down on the internet. So there's been several of these groups that are kind of like the Tea Party type thing that have gone out. They've had wanted to get all their friends and family and everybody to go to the protests, and they were using the Facebook to kind of say, well, at this date, this time, this is where we're going to be, and we're going to make sure you're safe and you're in your car and not running around, but we're going to do this to press the government to reopen these certain states. And so just like Turkey, Saudi Arabia, China, the U.S. government, in essence, allowed Facebook to remove these pages from protesters, so protesters could not organize. And that is really, a antithetical, at least, of the, Bill of Rights. I mean, you have the right to assemble. You have the right to, say, whatever you want to say, whether people like it or not. And this is the kind of country we are. And now all of a sudden, we're allowing Facebook to be the censors, just like Chinese and all these other dictatorial and communist countries. That's how they behave. But right now, that's how this country is behaving via Facebook. So you're probably going to see a lot more of these protests because it's ridiculous.
And you could understand, and I, and there's no way in the world they can be getting confused with what people that are posting things on Facebook, just talking about, politics, how that would even equal to pornography, okay? You can understand, blocking stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, and you know what, I send out a lot of animal pictures on Facebook, cute little pictures, look how this cat, answers the phone or something. And heck, they gave me a warning because I had a cute little dog. He wasn't doing anything, nothing obscene, nothing. I never could figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's I've been deplatformed for a lot of the things that we discuss on radio, but as long as I can get my message out to one or two people, I guess I'm doing my job and having to get this stuff done. And we should be having a government that's actually reflective of what the people are in this country. And if Facebook thinks that it's okay to take pages down and stomp out people who they may not be on the left and not share the same views, but they're trying to use their platform and power to shut down these people who merely want to protest. And as we know, when the Tea Party went out, we didn't leave messes all over and trash strewn all over. So those are the people. They're the people that go to church. They're the people that work every day. They're the people that raise families. They're the middle class. The fabric of this country has been founded on these people. And Facebook and other people have taken it upon themselves to deplatform and make sure that these people have no venue to, speak their hate, because they want the government back open because they're going broke and they can't afford to buy groceries next week, because I'm sorry, you just should die, because that's what the left and what Facebook is putting out there is basically, if you're in that position, just go ahead and die, because we're going to keep this close so we can get the White House. So,
Kimberly, unfortunately, all out of time, and we could have talked about CIA connection.
yeah, we'll get
One
back.
of our favorite people that get on just about every time we're here. Okay,
Yeah.
Jonathan, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right.